The new Enshrouded Update 8 brought with it a storm of changes, buffing the Wand Mage and bringing back the Rapid Caster archetype for the Wizard. This allows for an incredible experience as a mage in the later stages of the game. We warned, this build starts to shine in the mid to end game, requiring gear to perform at its best. However, once you start to ramp up, you become unstoppable. The best range DPS, great sustain, great crowd control, and a simple playstyle describe this build best. If this sounds like something you might enjoy, stick around and I will answer all your questions. How are we sustaining mana and health? How are we dealing this much damage with a wand? How are we casting this fast? How do we sustain the wet status? And how do you actually build this wizard build with the new skill tree? So let's start with the first questions. How do we sustain this much mana and this much health? There is two ways to do this. The first one is through our skill tree. We can find up here Bloodletting, which spawns on a critical hit an orb or two for health, stamina, or mana. Gathering such an orb restores 10% of the respective resource. And we combine this one with good metabolism to get this one to 30%. So we sustain through that. And another one is found up here, Mana Current. This one helps a lot, especially during the early levels. So once you have all your sustain in place, you're going to then look for gear. For the Crystal Staff, this one is going to be your bread and butter throughout the whole game. You will want to find something like this. Even on a green quality with 5% mana leech is going to be insane. But if you are going to run multiple rings with mana regeneration on them and are utilizing mana potions, you can also swap to a different weapon, like for example, something like a Staff of Guidance, which has a lot of critical strike damage, or a Violet Storm one later in the game for a lot more damage with critical strike chance at 18% and 32 ruthless, so 32 critical strike damage. Really solid option here. And for the ring, you have the Commander's Ring. This one provides you with 5% health leech at epic quality. You can farm this one right here in the pike. There is a dragon, so after around level 20 you can get to here and you can fight the dragon here, and it drops this specific ring basically every single time. At purple quality, 5% health leech means 5% of the damage you deal, you regenerate this health. This is really potent in combination, so you basically never run out of those two resources. Next up, we're going to take a look at fast casting. Now we have Tight Collar's Gloves, which come at blue quality with Quick Charge. Quick Charge increases your cast speed by 15%. And then we're going to look at the Ring of Rapacity. This one also comes with a charge of Quick Charge. If we equip two of those, so we get to 45%. Through the skill tree, we get 45, so we can get up to 90% cast speed time for our spells. At 75%, it's basically instant already. So one ring is enough if you use the gloves. If you're not going to utilize gloves like this one or a ring like this one, and go for something else in the build, which I do recommend for the wand playstyle, and then quick swapping those depending on what you prefer in the current situation. That's something you should think about. Next up, the damage stacking. There are quite a few things you need to think about here. The first one, for your wand, it's generally better to have a multi-hit wand like this one, fires multiple shots, because each of those can crit, each of those can proc things like mass destruction, and each of those can also proc things like the gem we currently have equipped in our wand, which is the Gem of Currents. So every single hit after we apply Soak to Wet to a target has a 48% chance to apply more shock damage. And this one stacks multiple times on multiple hits, so it's a really good solid way to proc this specific gem, which is found in the endgame, 45 level gem. So we scale through multiple hits because of those two things. Then we also scale through Sting, 20% repeated wand damage increased. We have wand specialization. We have wand mastery here. Wand mastery is 20%. We have magic damage, which is another 15%. And we then have fire damage here, 40% because of equipment. Baseline is 30, as well as here 30 for thunder. We also get wizard here for 6% crit strike chance. And we get another thing here, 24% increased damage versus ranged enemies, as well as fatal precision, which works on all damage, not just bows and not just daggers. So it's 3% crit strike chance and 15% crit strike damage. And that's about it. But all of those are separate multipliers, and all of those come together to provide us with a top tier DPS setup. Now, the last question I want to answer is, how do we get the wet status? Well, there's two things you can do here. You can stand near a cliff like this one and then throw water balloons on top or near it like so. You hit yourself. Now you're soaked or wet. The same can be applied with the portable water pump. So like this one, you have to apply it right on top of you and then you get soaked. So you have to have something like this in the inventory to apply and reapply the wet status constantly. But we need to combine this one further in the endgame with wet dog as well as soaked dog to reduce the stamina penalty while you're wet. Now, once we get the gem, we can then apply this one to enemies and we get the shock resistance debuff on them as well as ice resistance debuff, but fire damage is going to be reduced. So you have to combine this one cautiously depending on what you're going to use on the enemy. 30% shock resistance reduced is 30% more damage, basically, just on top of everything. A really good setup for this character. Next up, let's have a look at the skill tree progression. We're going to start with double jump right in the middle. This one is a bread and butter for puzzling and a lot of environmental positioning that you want to utilize with the mage. So you want to jump on top of crates, jump on top of buildings so you're safe from enemies, especially in the early game while you are squishy. Next, we're going to start working on the mage cluster. Intelligence, healer 1 point, necromancer, Mage Apprentice 1 point, quick charge. You want to grab this one to make the staff usable, 3 points here, as well as mana currents to get your mana sustain going. In the early game, this will be enough with a ring, so you can actually start to cast. Then I would highly advise you to go for Updraft, increases your exploration enjoyment a lot. Then there is a little bit of a period where you have to be a little bit more cautious with the points. For the most optimal setup, you want to dip into the wand cluster here, Arcane Deflection, Eternal Spark, Intelligence, Unity to restore mana, also helps you with mana restore. Wand specialization, as well as wand mastery, life essence is for something that you want later. Then you get all the nodes for defenses, and then you have into the wizard tree. Grab Iceman, Arsonist, Chain Hit, Mass Destruction, Thunder. Radiant Aura can be omitted, but it only costs 3 points to get this one up to speed. Water Aura is also a little bit off sustain, especially early on. If you don't have the 5% ring to heal, this one is a lifesaver. So all of those things should be grabbed in the mid game. Then you grab your defenses, you grab the soaked and wet dog in the end game once you get to the last area, because then you're going to have access to this status. Good metabolism, wanderlust, as well as bloodletting. All of this can be picked up later. Why later? Because it's cost intensive. You need grit to make it work. Both terror as well as bloodletting require critical strike, so you want to build up your gear before you venture into this part of the tree. And then lastly, you just pick up fatal precision, counter battery, stuff like that. So the early game focus and mid game focus is this part of the tree, and then in the end game you part ways with the bottom side of the tree and then start to dip into the trickster, ranger, assassin, survivor, and athlete parts of the tree. Now, as for equipment, as you can see, I have only epic gear or legendary gear. You can find all of those through farming chests, very easy. The Ring of Rapacity is something you can grab relatively early, and I would highly advise you to grab this one also early, because you get stamina, you get a little bit of additional mana regeneration and charge. So you're going to be safe, and you don't need to farm all the mana rings. So you can rock 2 of those in the early game and still be fine. The mana plus here you can omit by equipping the right gear, for example a chest with mana, or you grab some additional spirit on a tree. But at this point, once you find this one, it's going to be relatively easy. Now, where to find this one? There's going to be a village somewhere around this part. I sadly forgot. I cannot show you directly, but I would added something in the video, so currently you will be able to see how to find this one on the screen in a video or in a map, but here you can grab it relatively early in the game. The Commander's Ring I already talked you through. It's in the pike. You can find it right here. Riverwood. For the other rings, there is a few options you can grab here. Ring of Burning Light provides you with fire resistance, but more importantly, Wizard, as well as Arsonist. So that's crit. That's 10% fire damage. With the same one for thunder damage, Wizard, Thunder, and the same one for Ring of Frost. All of those are region specific, so this one can be found in the early game, level 20. This one can be found in the end game. This one can be found in the mid game. Ultimate Ring of Mana provides you Spellslinger, so generic 5% damage instead of just elemental damage 10%. So for the rings, the best ones are the ones you can farm in the early game, set up for the whole build, and it's really nice to have on the build. Now, once you go wanding, later on, you want to prefer a wand elemental that's aligned with the weakness of the region. For the last region, that's electric damage or lightning damage, shock damage. So you're going to exchange your Ring of Rhapsody with the Ring of Thundersnow. Provides you with thunder, 10%, as well as 5% shock damage. That's 15% additional damage, as well as 2% additional crit. And you're going to crit more often with your spells. So when you use your spells, that's a good addition to the build. Now, as for the weapon, there is the Crystal Water Staff. Just the staff with Mana Leech is really important for the build, for the sustain. So you want to actually find a staff like this, and then it solves basically all your mana issues. Before that, you can find something like the Staff of Guidance with a lot of crit damage. So if you crit, you're going to deal a ton of damage. But I prefer the Crystal Water Staff for basically the whole game. Also, socket here, you can see the Gem of Currents. I just like it, especially in the end game. You are constantly proccing this one with Chain Lightning and so on and so forth. The Violet Storm is also a valid option here if you can sustain your mana in some other capacity, like for example through your potions. You can utilize this one with no mana leech, but a lot more damage in form of crit strike chance as well as crit strike damage. With this one, you are going to see a roughly 20% improvement in your damage. Then your Prismatic Ward, whatever you can find, is completely fine. You can use your wand with your shield in your hand. So this actually applies to your wand damage. So you want actually to have a Prismatic Ward equipped. Provides you with wand mastery. What else is there to not love about this one? Eternal Spark as well, +1 to that. Then we have our gloves. There's two possibilities. Either you focus on the staff damage with a Tight Colors glove, or any glove at that provides you with quick charge, as well as Arsonist. But in this case, if you want to focus on your wand damage, you want to prefer something like the Frozen Gauntlets or the Flaming Gauntlets, depending on what damage type you want. Frozen Gauntlets are better because they provide you with wand damage, 10%, as well as 25% increased critical strike damage versus soaked enemies. So this combines really well. We get 2 mastery for wand, as well as more ice damage, but that's not that important. And Arcane Deflection. Where to find this one? There is a Lace Maker pond right here. So you start here, you walk all the way around here, walk to Gold Rock Saddle, walk past it right here. Dractyl Camp, there is the circlet. I will show you a little bit later. Then you walk past here, and right here, you want to follow the edge of the frozen pond. And right here, you walk up to this one, to this pond. There is a hole in the ice where you can dive down. You will see a lot of green stuff here. And there is a corpse that carries those gloves. As for the circlet provides you with also Spellslinger, which is 10% more damage here with your spells, but 10% thunder damage. So 10% shock damage, which is really synergistic with your wand as well as with the gem. You also get Terror, so you stun enemies more often because of that. 21% critical strike chance versus soaked enemies. So if you apply through the gem, the current gem, soak to enemies, they will get a lot more damage through this item. There is nothing that can compete with this one. You can find an Elder Hat here. It is okayish, but this one takes the cake. It's a lot more damage here, especially once you combine this one. You can see here crit strike damage as well as crit strike chance, so only half of this one, but you combine this one with the gloves, so you have double basically for both stats, and you get more specialized damage here. Now, where to get the Circlet of Lightning? Gridlock Saddle right here. You can climb up on top of this hill, then fly down to the Dractyl Camp. Here is going to be the entrance. You walk all the way around here, and you will be able to find a small mini boss here, and there is a skull on top of an altar that carries the circlet. Now, for the other equipment, we want to have a physical reduction damage chest with a lot of health, stamina. We don't need the mana because of the staff here. We get a ton of health for this one, and physical damage reduction, because if an enemy gets to us, we need to have something to offset all the major equipment that has basically none. 21 physical damage reduction, that's like nothing. So you want to have a chest piece that balances this one out. So you want to have a little bit more physical damage reduction than your magical damage reduction. For your pants, you want stamina pants. Why stamina pants? 12% sprint speed. It's just too good to pass up. Your other pants have bloodletting and terror. Not that important, especially on a wand build where you're not that reliant on those. I think those are fine as is. You have 60% on both. You don't need 75% on both. You're just going to overstack this. Not as important as the 12% sprint speed. And for your boots, you want something with stamina regeneration delay as well as runner. Runner provides you with 5% sprint movement speed. So additionally to this, which is found here, you need to put 1 point in here, but that's 25% sprint speed plus 12% from your pants, so you're relatively fast with 37% here. So that's basically the equipment here. You also look kind of sick, a little bit like a TBC character in WoW. Now, on how to play this one, very easy. You want to get yourself the wet status. So you walk up to an edge or anything like a doorway and then throw your balloons on top of yourself. Then you're soaked. Then you swap out to your wand, and then you just keep pressing the wand button. That's it. That's the gameplay. It's basically this simple. You can lock your target with the tab key. You're going to use the generic dodge roll because it's more flexible and doesn't have the ugly delay of the blink, so I don't like that. For your spells, you want to use your fireballs, you want to use your eternal ice bolt, and then you have your lightning channel in the last area. This one can stun lock enemies. As you can see, this one takes quite a lot of mana. But if we go down here, you can just pop out your Eternal Lightning like this. Ooh, and it stuns the enemy quite consistently. You basically infinitely sustain due to the damage you deal. You're just immortal. Look at all the stuff you're spawning here. For healing, you have your Eternal Beam spell that can only heal friends, not yourself. But for yourself, you have Eternal Heal. Those are those blobs. They can heal you quite a lot. So if you have any questions, please comment down below. I'll try to answer. I will also provide you with a skill tree once they have updated a skill tree somewhere on the internet. For all my builds, by the way. You can leave a like if you haven't already and subscribe if you desire so. So I would appreciate it and see you next time. Bye.